weird guy on the train. Firstly, I'm a 24-year-old male, and I'm not great at writing things out like this, but I wanted some advice as I'm a socially awkward person. So I decided to go into town the other day, and I took the train in. I arrived at the station, got my ticket, and then waited for the train. I was approached by an elderly man. They'd say he was about 60. I must have been someone he knew or seen before, because he comes up and he says, "Wow, I haven't seen you in some time." I replied to him, "Sorry, I think you may have the wrong person." He continued to push the conversation by saying, "You must have a twin." I laughed and brushed it off. Once the train arrived, I got on and sat down. I sat in a two-seater. The man sat down next to me and asked me my name. Trying to be nice, I replied my name, and he said his name. He asked me a few questions, and I gave answers. All up to this point, everything seemed fine. He asked to use my phone to make a call, which I honestly didn't see an issue with. After this, he sent a text message, which too was fine. Then his phone beeped. He then turned to me and said that he has my number now and we can catch up later. Turns out he had called himself on my phone to get my number. I tried to play it off as coolly as possible, but I was pretty creeped out by this point and I couldn't leave since he blocked me in. Finally, he got off at the station. Straight away he texted me, and each day he's been texting me to come over to his house or go out for a coffee. I felt bad for him because he seemed lonely, but it just feels really odd and creepy now. I just wanted some people's thoughts, as I've never been in this situation before and I don't really have friends to talk to about this. Creepy stranger. It was about 9, maybe 10 p.m, and this was back in my first or second grade. My older sister and I were playing in the living room. We were sitting on the floor in a way that was facing the window. My dad always does a night check, making sure to shut all the doors and windows, making sure and double sure that they're locked before we all go to bed. And this is usually after he goes outside for a quick smoke. That night while playing, I saw a silhouette of a man wearing a cap standing right outside the window, just looking at us while we were playing. Mind you, this window was right next to our door, which was unlocked, so I just assumed it was my father having a smoke outside. But he wasn't moving or anything. So I said enthusiastically, "Hi, Dad." The silhouette moved to show a shushing manner, the finger in front of the mouth, as if telling me not to say anything. My sister, confused, turned around and then looked back at me in horror and said that our dad was in the bedroom. I ran to the bedroom and my dad was indeed inside reading the newspaper, chatting with my mum. As I got up to run, the man or person ran away too. My dad tried to chase after him, but he was gone faster than he could manage to catch up. We don't have a CCTV. We never found out who it was, and since then I've always been anxious about locking doors, just in case. Approached by 2 guys in the hospital parking lot in the middle of the night. Good evening, Reddit. This is my first post ever, and also the reason I made this profile to begin with. I'm a 33-year-old female, but this happened back when I was 24. I'm a nurse by profession. At the time, I was working in an outpatient facility. I was stuck on strictly night shift at the time, and to this day I still get antsy during night shift. For those that may not know, outpatient facilities are used for patients that are recovering from surgery. On a typical night, we would have one or two. It was rare that we would have any more than that. I don't remember how many we had on this night, but it was something along those lines. During the night shifts, there were a few things that I was required to do, and I would act upon requests if needed. But me and the med tech were usually in the nurse's break room, which was right next to our desk, watching TV or playing on our phones. We also had a security guard. It was an unarmed guard position, which I still have my issues with, and they did less than we did. Our full-time guard was a man who at the time was pushing 70. Don't get me wrong, he was the biggest sweetheart in the world, but if push come to shove, I don't know how effective he would have been in the state of a crisis. Our other guard was a part-timer. He only worked 2, maybe 3 shifts every couple of weeks. My brother used to joke that he was a professional NPC because he worked several different jobs to make ends meet. At the time, he was 28, and the nursing staff tended to favor him because he actually did his job properly. One reservation I did have about him was that he wasn't always in the security office. He actually conducted his checks and would do a few checks in the adjoining facility, so he wasn't always at his desk. We didn't always need him, but it was nice to have him there in case we needed to go outside. This was one of the nights that he was working, and this was the circumstance. Before you say anything, I know that this isn't great for a nurse to say, but I used to go out and have a couple of cigarettes throughout the night. I've quit smoking since then, but at the time I would probably have gone for 4 to 6 times a night to smoke near my car. It was around midnight, give or take, and I was posted up against my car, smoking, when these 2 guys started walking through the parking lot. Trespassing was a big no-no, but the parking lot was a shortcut to the local motel, which is a creepy encounter all on its own. The security usually wouldn't get involved if people were just quickly passing through. The 2 guys spotted me and called me out. I didn't respond, which seemed to be an invitation for them to approach. I know I should have just tossed the cigarette and went back inside, but 24-year-old me ignored that common sense. Both of the guys were probably in their mid-20s, nothing off-looking about them aside from the way that they were talking, and the fact that they were going to the motel. They probably wouldn't have stood out in a crowd to me. One of them asked me for a cigarette. I said that I left my pack inside and that I couldn't help them. He started asking me questions about my job, where I was from, and how old I was. I didn't take the bait on any of those questions. I told them I had to get back inside. One of them stood sort of in my way, and the other asked if he could have my number. I said no. The thing that took me overboard was one of them had moved my jacket to see my name tag and put his face really close to it to read my name. It was obvious that he was just trying to look at my breasts. That was the line for me, and I pushed past them and foolishly went to the front door that my keycard didn't open. So I had literally cornered myself between the door and these 2 random guys. I had to find a way around them to get into the side door that I exited from, but judging by their body language, that wasn't going to go my way. Thankfully, I was greeted with a familiar voice. Our friendly neighborhood security guard was apparently checking the other facilities and managed to show up in time before I had to either run or plead. One of the guys got smart with him, but after an intense staring contest, he backed down and the 2 left. I did enjoy the look on his face when he realized that he was actually dealing with someone who could probably cause him serious harm. I remember giving him a hug, thanking him. I started looking forward to his shifts. He made us all feel a lot safer. After that, he and I would converse, and he would walk outside with me if I wanted to smoke, and we would occasionally split a pizza or something during our shifts that coincided. I know this isn't an incredibly conventional story about the man that would become your husband 3 years later and give you 2 beautiful little girls, but it's a story that reminds me that he's always had my back. To this day, I don't know what those guys had in their intentions, and as much as I'd love to believe that they wouldn't have tried anything in plain sight of security cameras, being a nurse has taught me that people frequently don't think with their heads sometimes. I'm just grateful that divine intervention sent someone in the way of that and gave me the best guy in the world. Didn't mean to turn this all sappy, by the way. Either way, stay safe, everyone. A driver kept trying to pull me over. For reference, I'm 30 female and this guy looked about 35 to 40 male. I was driving home on the highway and there was a van in front of me. I was behind this van for several miles before I decided to pass. It was a 4-lane highway, so no vehicles or anything that would come in front of me. I was having no problem passing this guy. As soon as I make it almost to the point of me fully passing him, he speeds up. So I proceed to speed up because I don't understand. I'm clearly trying to pass. He speeds up to be right beside my car and keeps gesturing and waving at me almost to signal me to pull over. I floor it and pass the guy, keeping speed just to stay away from him. I see him slow down and kind of wave at me almost like a goodbye or hello type of wave. Then a few seconds after, speeds up. They go to the passing lane and speed up to be right next to my car again. He then motions again, almost like he's asking me to pull over. He's pointing to himself and pointing to me. I literally flip this guy off at this point and he won't speed up. I slow down. He slows down. I speed up. He speeds up. I tried slamming on my brakes to lose him and nothing. I finally put my phone out to start recording and he finally speeds up to pass. I see this guy trying to make a turn exactly where I am going towards, the direction of my house. So I decide to go the opposite way, to a store where I know there will be a lot of people, and I stay there for about an hour. I'm thinking to myself, what the actual heck? I'm truly unsettled at this point. In case you're wondering, there's nothing wrong with my vehicle. I mean, I have a couple of dents and standard rust, but nothing concerning. And my tire rim is a little bit dented, but you really can't see that at high speeds. This whole thing doesn't make sense. Like, what did he want to do? What did he want? I mean, if it was to do with my tires or something like that, for example, if they were flat, wouldn't he point to the tire and roll his window down or something instead of being an absolute creep? I'm also not sure what would have upset him, as it's not like I cut him off or anything. I was behind him for miles. He didn't appear to be in some sort of road rage mode. He wasn't banging on his steering wheel or anything. He just seemed persistent, like he wanted me to stop. The way he was gesturing to himself and to me, almost shrugging, almost like a silent come on. It was just all so weird. And for anyone else who may wonder, yes, I do have pictures of his vehicle, and I did make a police report in case he tried to do this with other women, but I still haven't and probably won't hear anything back. Man called us to his van. I was reading some of these at work the other day and it reminded me of a creepy encounter that happened to my friend, my sister and I. This happened when we were a lot younger. I would say we were still in elementary school, maybe 7th grade. For context, the town that I lived in is pretty chill. It had a movie theater that was next to a few stores and a couple of restaurants. So our mother would drop us off, and sometimes we would walk around after the movies and just go hang out at Walmart or Whataburger. This one particular night though, we were in Walmart in the parking lot, on the way back to the movie theater so we could get picked up, and an older man with a van called us over and said, "Wow, I can't open up my DVD. Can you guys come over here and help me open it?" Now, my sister and I immediately thought, why would a grown man ask us kids to help him open a DVD in a parking lot? My friend, male by the way, immediately started walking towards the man, and we stopped him before he was close to him, saying that that was a weird thing to ask for and that we should get away from him. He wanted to be the man in the situation, but we were kids. What was he going to do? Anyways, in the end we were just really scared and ended up sprinting away and not looking back. While I know this story isn't as creepy as some of the others on here, it was still absolutely terrifying for me. And I'm glad we didn't stick around to find out what that guy was really wanting. I don't know what to think anymore. Hello everyone. I'm pretty disturbed right now and I don't really know who to talk to, so I decided to post here. I recently moved into a new house in an old building from the 1920s, located in a quiet neighborhood. Everything was fine until I started noticing some weird things. About 2 weeks ago, I saw a weird man hanging around my property. It was late at night and he seemed to be rummaging through my trash cans. At first, I thought it was just someone lost or homeless looking for food, so I didn't pay it much attention, but things started getting more worrying. One night I saw him through my kitchen window, just standing there, staring at my house. He was wearing dirty clothes and had a blank look on his face, almost like he wasn't really seeing what he was looking at. I turned on the outside lights and he ran away incredibly quickly. Since that day I keep seeing him sporadically. Sometimes I find footprints in the mud near my windows or objects moved around the house. Once I even found an old shoe half buried in my garden, like someone tried to hide something. The worst part is that I started hearing strange noises at night, scratching at the windows, light knocks on the walls, and indistinct whispers that seemed to come from outside. I've called the police several times, but every time they arrive, the man is gone and they don't find any traces of him. My friends think I'm paranoid and that I'm imagining things because of the stress of the move, but I can't help but feel like there's really someone watching me and trying to scare me. I'm starting to doubt my own sanity. Sometimes I wonder if I'm imagining all of this, but the footprints, the moved objects, and the noises, they're real. Has anyone experienced similar things to this? Does anyone have any advice? Like, what should I do? Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening. I need help. Nobody around me believes me. A guy on the railroad tracks refused to answer and only walked when I walked. Why? For context, I live in a small trailer court in central Wisconsin, and directly next to us is a railway that goes across the whole state and leads to a Wally World if you head down for 20 minutes. I was a teenager at the time, maybe in the 8th grade, with no car or transportation other than a bike. The railway tracks go in a straight line, directly leading to a Walmart. So if I were to bike to the Walmart, it takes me about the same time as if I walk straight down the tracks. So more often than not, I would walk, as I was never really a big fan of riding bikes, as I have had back issues since a young age. On this particular day, I decided to head to Walmart for dumb kid stuff shortly before the sun was about to set. This detail will come into play later. Basically, I went to the store and got distracted just looking around, brought some food and drinks and some trading cards, but left as the sun was going down. It's about a 20 to 25 minute walk home, and I decided to head down the tracks again. At about the 10-minute mark, it was getting really dark, and I was genuinely fearful and anxious as a child due to my autism. I was scared of the dark until I was about 14 and a half, and would often have nightmares or see things that weren't really there in my closet or in dark corners, etc. So as it became too dark to see, I was getting extremely nervous and hypervigilant. 5 minutes later, I could swear I was hearing footsteps crunching on the rocks lining these tracks that weren't mine. I stopped for a few times to listen and confirmed someone was walking towards me from a significant distance away. At this point, I couldn't see them because of the darkness and lack of lighting. I had no phone or flashlight of any kind. I start freaking out internally. At first, I didn't know what to do, but as the sound of the footsteps got closer, I decided to call out and let them know I was coming towards them. I stopped as I did and said something along the lines of, "Is someone there?" Well, I know this might seem silly as an adult, but I was used to my brain playing tricks on me in darkness, and I was convinced that I was hearing things. I had no response. At this point, the footsteps were getting closer, but still difficult to distinguish over my own, so I stopped. The footsteps continued for a brief moment, and then they stopped too. I called out again, "Hello, is anyone there?" No response. I was still prepubescent and had a child's voice. I feel like any reasonable adult would have responded and said yes or yeah, I'm walking or whatever, as I had genuine, noticeable fear in my voice. After I received no response again, I told myself that it was just my imagination, and I continued on my journey, at this point being just under 15 minutes from my home, and I heard them again, the footsteps coming closer and closer. As soon as I started walking, so did they. At this point, fear took over, and I started yelling and making whooping sounds, thinking it might be some sort of animal. I yelled so many things like, "I know you're there," and "I have a knife," which was total bullshit, but I thought might encourage this person to respond. However, still nothing. A few times I was speaking, I would hear the footsteps stop again. Finally, about 3 to 5 minutes later, stopping multiple times and hearing the footsteps stop. Sorry, I can't give a super specific time frame as I was in total fight or flight mode and scared out of my mind, but I start seeing this guy materialize out of the darkness. He had on blue jeans, a dark hoodie with the hood completely masking his face from a distance. I was instantly relieved for whatever reason, relieved to know that I wasn't crazy, maybe, and began verbally vomiting to the sky that I was just scared and I didn't know that he was on the tracks for sure. He again did not respond, and this was before mainstream Bluetooth audio, and I didn't notice any headphone cables even when I passed him. Because he didn't respond, I was eyeing him warily as he approached, and we locked eyes. I'll never forget the chill that ran down my spine. He was staring coldly and blankly with a menacing look on his face, some sort of terrifying appearance in his eyes, like he was thinking about what to do. He had his hands shoved in his pockets, and as I was passing him, he looked like he was going to pull something out. I was a very scrawny kid, and even though I have back problems, I was fast as hell. I just hurt from running for too long. From the second I saw him look like he was about to pull something out of his pocket, I was sprinting. Everything was a blur. I couldn't tell where I was going, it was pitch black. I tripped and fell twice as I soaked myself in mud when I tried to get across the small ditch separating the tracks from the trailer park and got home. I never told my mother about this, and in all fairness, I never walked those tracks again. After reading through this again, I thought I would describe the tracks a little bit more for context. They are on an elevated hill next to the trailers, and you can either walk a minute in the wrong direction to get to the main road that I live on, or you can cut through this small spot where some people had put boards down for that exact purpose to get across the ditch and the tracks. The board was broken in half and partially submerged, so it was kind of like you had to jump and land on the board with one foot, then kick off to the other side. The ditch is maybe 3 feet across and is not a huge jump, but it always has a nasty standing water in it. Once you get to the tracks, there is a super long stretch with absolutely no way off other than private property of a factory the railway delivers goods to, which you can get in trouble for trespassing on. Then there's a junction about 20 minutes down and another 5 minutes from there, which is where the Walmart is. Due to this, I couldn't get off the tracks when I ran away. I had to get to the ditch before I would be able to. Thanks for listening. Worst time I was followed around a mall. This happened to me about 10 years ago. I was 18 at the time and working in a very popular chain restaurant in my local mall. It was a famous one for breakfast, and the uniform was a brightly colored button-down shirt that was easily recognizable. It was Sunday, our busiest day of the week, and a holiday on top of that, so we were crowded and crazy busy. When it came to my time for lunch, I didn't want to bother the kitchen with my order, so I decided to quickly pop out to a different restaurant and eat, to then return and help my co-workers again. It was very crowded and slow going. After a bit of walking, a tall older man casually fell in to step next to me. At first I didn't pay him any mind due to the crowd, but then he started talking directly to me and it was difficult to ignore. "Hey there, what's your name? Where do you work?" Unfortunately, I still had my name tag on, and it showed both the restaurant and my name, so I said nothing in response. "Oh, I should stop by for some pancakes and waffles sometime." I didn't respond, nor did I make eye contact either. Any other question he asked along our walk. was answered with silence or one-word answers. I was afraid to be impolite, but also I really didn't want to give him any leeway. Then finally he asked, "How old are you, sweetheart?" "I'm 15, I replied. I was absolutely of age, 18, but I hoped that lie would put him off. He was definitely in his 30s. Then he replied, "Hey, I can work with that." And he touched my shoulder. I don't know what kind of reaction he wanted from me, but I instantly recalled, eyes wide, I ducked into the closest store, which I think was a GameStop, and started browsing like my life depended on it. Fortunately, he didn't follow me into the store, nor did he wait to follow me when I finally left to go grab my quick lunch. I didn't see him again, thankfully. And if he ever did stop by the restaurant for his pancakes and waffles, I never had the misfortune of serving him. However, it still stuns me to this day that I barely reciprocated and then told him that I was underage, and none of this made him stop trying to interact with me. Just, wow. That also isn't the only time I was followed around the mall by men, but it was definitely the worst in my opinion. Hello everyone, Grimm here. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. I hope you've been enjoying the videos that we've been releasing lately. As always, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and gives me motivation to keep coming up with new things for you guys. But yeah, as always, be safe wherever you are. Have an amazing night or day, and as always, I'm Grimm, and I'm, well, signing off.